I had just gotten home from my night shift when I saw the red slip taped to my front door. Big bold letters. HOA violation, firearms confiscation notice. My stomach dropped. I live alone, out here in the edge of town, no close neighbors. Just trees, dirt, and peace. That's why I chose this place. That's why I bought this land with my own money. I peeled the notice off slowly, thinking it had to be some mistake. But the name at the bottom made my blood boil. Linda Mercer, HOA president. She wasn't just the HOA head, she was the Karen. Always lurking, always watching, always ready to remind everyone of her rules that seemed to change whenever it suited her. Last month, she filed a noise complaint because I was fixing my truck at 4 p.m. The month before that, she told the delivery guy I wasn't allowed to receive packages at the front gate unless I got it cleared by the board. There is no board, just her. Now she was coming after my shotguns? I walked inside, heart pounding. Nothing was missing yet. My cabinet was still locked up, untouched. I picked up my phone, ready to call someone, anyone, when I saw the security cam alert. Motion detected. 3:02 a.m. I tapped the screen. The footage loaded and my hands tightened into fists. 2 men in black jackets, no badges, no marked car, just gloves, crowbars, and a bolt cutter. One of them looked into the camera and flipped it off. That was no HOA warning. That was a break-in attempt, disguised as official business. I took a breath, kept calm. I dealt with worse, much worse. Linda didn't know who she was messing with. She thought I was just some quiet guy who lived at the edge of town. She didn't know about my status. She didn't know I was protected by federal law, and she sure didn't know the kind of clearance I held. But she was about to find out. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my truck with the engine off, watching my own driveway through the side mirror. Every creak of the trees made me glance up. By morning, I was running on coffee and instinct. At 7:14 a.m., a white SUV rolled up. No license plates, just a laminated sign in the windshield. HOA enforcement unit. I actually laughed. 2 men stepped out, same ones from the footage. Only this time they had windbreakers with HOA compliance written on the back. Not police, not federal agents, just guys in cheap boots pretending to be something they weren't. And then Linda got out, ponytail too tight, clipboard in hand, sunglasses like she was walking onto a movie set. She didn't even look at me. When she walked up the steps, just waved her hand like I was some dog she could shoo away. "You were notified," she said, tapping the paper on the door. "You're not authorized to keep firearms on this property. Under HOA Regulation 14B, we're here to remove them." I stepped out of the truck slowly, calm enough to scare them. "First of all," I said, "this isn't your land. It's mine. Fully deeded, no HOA jurisdiction." Linda scoffed. "That's not what the county records show." "Then, you better read them again." She turned to the guys. "Secure the weapons." They moved fast, bolt cutters in hand again. One of them even had zip ties hanging from his belt. I held up my phone. "You're on camera. You break into my home. That's felony trespassing," Linda smirked. "We've got permission." "No," I said, stepping forward. "You've got paperwork you made up on your home printer. You touch that door and you'll find out what federally protected means." That's when I saw the flicker in her eyes. She hadn't expected pushback. She thought I'd roll over. She didn't know I'd served 12 years in federal tactical enforcement. Didn't know my house had a silent panic line connected straight to the ATF compliance office. Didn't know that I, by law, had the right to carry and store what I owned, because I was one of the people they'd trained to use it. But I was done talking. So I pressed the silent button under my keychain and waited. It took exactly 6 minutes. Watched Linda pace like she was hosting a show, directing the 2 fake enforcers to secure the perimeter, which basically meant standing around looking clueless. She started taking photos of my yard, muttering about violations and unsafe storage while pointing at my perfectly legal lockbox mounted inside my shed. That's when the black SUV rolled in. No sirens, no spotlight. Just quiet, steady, pressure on the gravel as the vehicle pulled up. The seal on the side door read, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. And right behind it, a marked county sheriff cruiser. Linda went stiff. One of the fake enforcers dropped the bolt cutters and tried to backpedal like he was just a neighbor helping out. The passenger door opened, and out stepped Agent Carver. He walked with that slow, heavy calm people only have when they know the law's completely on their side. He didn't even look at me, just nodded. "Sir, we received your ping," he said. "We've got eyes on everything from your camera feeds. Please stay back while we investigate." Linda stepped forward fast. "Wait, I'm the HOA president." Carver raised a hand. "Ma'am, step back from the property. Right now. I don't think you understand. I'm enforcing a firearm safety violation under HOA. Ma'am," he cut in again, slower this time. "Your name showed up in a federal flag alert. This isn't about HOA rules anymore." Linda's mouth opened, then closed. The sheriff's deputy walked over to the two so-called enforcers. "Names?" One said nothing. The other stammered something about working for a security firm. "Which firm?" the deputy asked. Silence. Then Carver turned to Linda. "You filed a falsified removal order, impersonated a federal compliance unit, and sent unauthorized personnel onto protected property." I thought," she stuttered. "No," he said coldly. You knew. You knew this wasn't your land. You knew your HOA has no legal standing here, but you came anyway with force." That's when her voice cracked. "He has guns." Carver looked at me, then back at her. "Yeah, legally, and unlike your people, he's trained to use them to protect this country." Linda took a step back. She wasn't smirking now. I could hear her breath shaking, and I hadn't even shown her the footage yet. Agent Carver turned to me and gave a subtle nod. I knew what that meant. It was time to show them what they'd walked into. I pulled out. My phone tapped the screen and mirrored the footage onto the SUV's rear display. The timestamp blinked. 3:02 a.m. The two fake enforcers creeping around my back gate, one of them pulling out a crowbar, the other looking right into the lens and flipping it off. Linda's face drained of all color. "Do you recognize these individuals, ma'am?" Carver asked, watching her carefully. She stayed silent, lips pressed tight, fingers trembling against the clipboard she was still clutching like a shield. "I'll take that as a yes," he said. "Because this one," he pointed at the man, "on the left, has a warrant out of Nevada for impersonating law enforcement, and the other's got a history of trespassing and petty theft." I looked straight at her. "You brought criminals to my home to steal from me under the name of your fake HOA." Her voice finally cracked. "I didn't know they were—" "You hired them," Carver cut in. "That is knowledge." Linda turned toward the deputy. "Wait, I was just trying to enforce safety, that's all. He has weapons, what if—" The deputy didn't even blink. "He has permits. He has federal clearance. You don't even have jurisdiction past your own fence." Then Carver walked up closer. "Tell me something, Linda. Why this house? Why this guy?" She looked at me, then away, as if the ground might open up and swallow her. "He's always quiet. Keeps to himself. No one knows what he's doing out here." That's when Carver leaned in, low voice, steel in his tone. "That's because he doesn't owe you an explanation. You messed with the wrong person, and now you're going to see what happens when someone with federal protections gets pushed." He stepped back and nodded to the deputy. "She's all yours." And just like that, Linda Mercer, the woman who thought she could run an entire neighborhood with her clipboard and made up rules, was being read her rights. But even as they walked her to the cruiser, she was muttering under her breath. Something about lawsuits, about not going down alone, and that's when I realized she wasn't finished. She was hiding something. It wasn't over. By the time the cuffs clicked around her wrists and the deputy shut the cruiser door, I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't scared. She was furious. The kind of fury that only comes from someone who thinks they're untouchable. And something about that didn't sit right with me. Agent Carver stayed behind as the sheriff's team cleared out. He stepped up beside me, watching the dust settle on the gravel. "She's not acting like someone who just got caught," I said quietly. "She isn't," he replied. "Because this isn't just her being petty. I looked at him. He nodded. We've had 3 similar cases in the last 2 months. Fake HOA enforcements, forged violation notices, threats of firearm confiscation. But this is the first time we've had hard evidence, thanks to your footage. I swallowed hard. You think it's bigger than her? Carver pulled out a manila folder and handed it to me. Inside were printed copies of 6 different notices, almost identical to the one Linda had taped to my door. Different names, same. Format, same language, same threats. This is organized, he said. There's someone behind it. Someone feeding people like Linda the paperwork, pushing them to act like they've got power they don't have. I flipped through the papers. One of the addresses caught my eye. Wait, this one's just 2 counties over. I know the guy who lives here, retired Marine. He mentioned something about HOA trouble a few weeks back. Carver's eyes narrowed. You think he got one of these notices too? I nodded. Yeah, and he doesn't scare easy, but he was rattled. Carver tucked the folder under his arm. We're opening a federal case. If you're willing, we could use your footage. Your statement. I'll give you both, I said without hesitation. But I want to know one thing. What's that? I looked toward the cruiser, where Linda sat frozen, staring straight ahead like a woman still holding on to some dark little secret. If she's working for someone, who the hell are they? Carver didn't answer, just gave a tight, grim smile. That's what we're about to find out. 2 days later, I was standing in front of the county courthouse wearing the one suit I still owned that didn't smell like oil or gunpowder. Inside, Linda Mercer was being arraigned on a long list of charges: impersonating law enforcement, criminal conspiracy, attempted illegal confiscation, and trespassing on federally protected land. But the real storm was brewing somewhere else. Agent. Carver had called me that morning. He sounded wired, like he hadn't slept. We traced the documents, he said. They were generated from a company registered in Wyoming. Shell Corporation. No employees, no taxes, just a name. Civic Integrity Solutions. That sounds fake as hell. It is. And we ran that name through a few databases. Guess what? It links back to a group we've been watching, calls itself the Citizens Defense Alliance. Militant HOA-type groups. They've been popping up around the country. Most just yell on forums, but some, they act. And Linda, she was on their mailing list. Monthly donations, and she's not the only one. That's when he told me 3 more arrests had been made in other states. All of them the same pattern. Fake notices, fake enforcement, real threats. And every single target had something in common. Veterans, immigrants, people of color. People they thought wouldn't fight back, or couldn't. But then there was me. I walked into that courtroom as a witness, not a victim. The prosecution played. The footage on a giant screen. Every detail. The bolt cutters. The middle finger to my camera. Linda barking orders like she was running a SWAT raid instead of a suburban scam. People in the courtroom gasped when the ATF badge showed up on screen. And the moment that footage ended, the lead prosecutor turned to the jury and said the one line that stuck with everyone in that room. She tried to take weapons from a federally protected American with a fake clipboard and 2 felons she found on Craigslist. Even the judge raised an eyebrow at that. Linda never looked at me once. Not during the trial. Not during the footage. Not when they read out the charges. She just sat there, silent, stiff and pale, but as they led her away, she mumbled something under her breath. He's next. They won't stop with me. Those words stuck with me like a splinter under the skin. They won't stop with me. I couldn't shake it. Couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those 2 men creeping around my home again, bolt cutters gleaming in the dark. I wasn't scared for myself. I knew how to handle threats. But I wasn't the only one on their list. People out there didn't have the connections I had. Didn't have the clearance. Didn't have Agent Carver in their phone. The next day, Carver called again. You were right, he said. We pulled Linda's email. There's a chain. How many? Too many. Over 40 people subscribe to what looks like a digital removal kit, fake forms, fake seals, even step-by-step instructions on how to legally reclaim dangerous homes. That's what they're calling it. They're targeting veterans, Carver. I know. And minorities. I know, and they almost got away with it. He paused. Not anymore. That afternoon we met at a federal office outside town. Brick walls, no signs. Inside, they showed me a map on the wall. Red pins scattered across the states. Every pin marked a hit. A home. A person who'd been harassed, threatened, or worse. Some had even moved out thinking they were actually in violation. I looked at Carver. We're not just dealing with Karens anymore. No, he said. We're dealing with a movement. But here's the thing. They messed up. They tried to silence the wrong people, and now? They're going to trial in 3 states. Then he handed me a folder. Inside was a letter, stamped official, testimonial subpoena. I was being called to speak at a federal hearing as the first known target to fight back and provide verified footage. You sure you're ready for this? Carver asked. I looked down at the paper, then out the window, toward the land I fought to keep safe. I didn't serve overseas, just to come home and let cowards with clipboards push people off their own land. He gave a slow nod. And Carver? Yeah? This time, I'm not just testifying. He raised an eyebrow. I want in. 3 months later, I stood in front of a packed federal courtroom in Washington, D.C. Rows of reporters, veterans, families, even a few congressmen. They weren't just there for Linda's case anymore. This had become something bigger. A full-scale investigation into a national harassment network hiding behind the illusion of homeowner rules. And now, they were on trial. I walked up to the witness stand and looked the jury in the eye. Not one of them blinked. I didn't know Linda Mercer, I began. Not really. I just knew she didn't like that I kept to myself. Didn't like that I didn't answer her HOA letters. Didn't like that a man like me lived on land I actually owned. I paused. Let the silence settle. She said I was dangerous, that my home wasn't safe, that my legally owned firearms were a threat to the neighborhood. But she didn't call the real authorities. She brought fake cops, real criminals, tried to take what was mine without a warrant, without rights, without truth. Someone in the back gasped. I continued. The system worked, because I had proof, because I knew people. But what if I didn't? What if it had been someone without connections, without a camera, without protection? The prosecutor asked me one question. Just one. Why do you think they targeted you? I looked straight at Linda, sitting pale and sunken at the defense table, then back at the jury. Because I was quiet. Because they thought I wouldn't fight back. Because they thought someone like me, former tactical enforcement trained by the feds, landowner, quiet, respectful, was easy to erase. But I wasn't. I turned to the judge. Your Honor, these people don't care about safety. They care about control. And they'll keep doing it until the law stands up and says, enough. The courtroom erupted in quiet murmurs. A few nodded. A woman wiped her eyes. That day, the jury returned with 5 guilty verdicts. Linda Mercer got 7 years. The 2 fake enforcers got more, especially after one of them confessed they were paid per removal. And Civic Integrity Solutions? Shut down. Its assets frozen. Its founders under investigation. As I walked out of the building, a reporter ran up to me. What would you say to the people out there dealing with HOA abuse? I looked into the camera, calm, steady. You don't need to be loud. You just need to be right. And if someone ever tries to take your land, your rights, or your peace, make sure they know what they're walking into. Because some of us may be quiet, but we're protected in more ways than they'll ever know. And with that, I walked back to my truck, back to my land, free, clear, unshakable, and this time, watched from all angles. America doesn't need perfect heroes, just people who refuse to be pushed.